A fool is not defined by his intelligence. He is defined by his refusal to grow. You've seen him before. The man who talks the loudest but learns the least. The man who blames everyone else while his own life falls apart. The man who is a slave to his emotions, his desires, and his pride. Marcus Aurelius warned us about men like this. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But the stupid man never sees the way. He runs from responsibility. He worships comfort. He surrounds himself with weak minds who never challenge him to rise higher. In this video, I'll show you 6 brutal signs of a foolish man, signs that destroy his future while he pretends everything is fine. More importantly, you'll learn how to recognize these traps in yourself and others, so you can rise above them and build a life rooted in wisdom, discipline, and strength. Sign 1. He thinks he knows everything. There's one trait more dangerous than ignorance: thinking you've outgrown the need to learn. You'll find this kind of man everywhere, at the office, in your family, online. He's the man who has an opinion on everything but insight on nothing. He speaks with confidence, but you quickly realize his confidence is empty. It's not grounded in reflection, study, or wisdom. It's grounded in arrogance. This is the man who starts every conversation with, "Let me tell you something," but never ends it with, "What do you think?" He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't seek to understand, because in his mind, he already knows enough. His world is small, but in his imagination, he's already reached the top. What makes him truly dangerous is that he doesn't look like a fool. He looks successful, certain, and decisive on the surface. But underneath that mask is a man who's stuck in his old beliefs, stuck in his outdated worldview, stuck in his own limited experience. Seneca warned us about men like this. He wrote, "The first step toward learning is the recognition of one's own ignorance." Yet the foolish man skips this step entirely. He builds his identity around being the expert, even when he stopped learning years ago. He hides behind phrases like, "I've been doing this for years, I know what I'm talking about." Or, "People today don't understand how things really work." Or, "I've seen it all before." And yet when you press him for details, when you challenge him with new evidence, when you introduce him to a different perspective, he shuts down. He gets defensive, or he changes the subject, because deep down he's afraid. He's afraid of being exposed, afraid of realizing he might have been wrong, afraid of admitting he still has more to learn. You'll find him in the workplace, refusing to adapt to new technologies because the old way works just fine. You'll find him in relationships, repeating the same patterns but blaming everyone else for the failure. You'll find him in leadership, clinging to outdated methods while the world moves on without him. And here's the trap. This man can go years, sometimes decades, without realizing how far he's fallen behind, because his pride filters out any feedback that doesn't stroke his ego. He doesn't see that while he's standing still, others are learning, growing, and rising above him. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the greatest empire in the world, humbled himself enough to write these words in his personal journal. He said, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone." This is the mark of true strength. The ability to say I was wrong, the willingness to listen, the courage to change. So here's your reflection. Are you defending your current knowledge or expanding it? Are you surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to grow, or people who validate your comfort zone? Do you seek conversations that stretch your thinking, or ones that protect your pride? A man who thinks he knows everything stops growing the moment he starts believing his own story. But a man who stays teachable, curious, and humble, that man becomes powerful beyond measure. Because in the end, it's not what you already know that shapes your future. It's what you're still willing to learn. Sign 2. He never takes responsibility. If you want to recognize a foolish man, watch what he does when life gets hard. Watch him when things fall apart. Watch him when he fails. The stupid man has one reflex, and that is to blame someone else. He points his finger at the world. He blames his boss. He blames his parents. He blames the economy, the government, his friends, his enemies, anyone but himself. He plays the victim because it's easier than facing the truth. And the truth, to me, this life is unpredictable. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you are always responsible for how you respond. A wise man takes ownership, even when life feels unfair. He doesn't waste time complaining. He doesn't get stuck in self-pity. He looks at the situation and asks, what is within my power to change? Because that is the only place real strength begins. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, taught this lesson over and over again. He said, it's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. But the foolish man ignores this wisdom. He waits for someone else to fix his life. He believes the world owes him something, and when life doesn't go his way, he convinces himself that he's cursed, unlucky, or betrayed. You'll hear it in the way he talks. It's not my fault. No one gave me a chance. Life is unfair. I would be successful if only they hadn't held me back. What he refuses to see is that these words are chains. Chains that keep him trapped in weakness. Chains that give all his power away to other people and outside circumstances. And here's the dangerous part. Over time, this habit of blaming others starts to feel normal. It becomes his identity. He starts seeing himself as a victim in every situation. And once a man believes he's a victim, he stops fighting. He stops growing. He stops trying. Because why bother taking action when you've already decided the world is against you? The Stoics taught that taking responsibility is the highest form of personal freedom. It means you don't wait for life to be fair. You don't wait for the perfect opportunity. You don't wait for someone to save you. You stand up. You own your choices. You take the next right step no matter how small it feels. So here's your reflection. Are you pointing fingers at others, or are you pointing yourself toward action? Are you spending more time blaming life, or building a life you can be proud of? Because every time you choose blame, you lose power. But every time you take ownership, you take that power back. Sign 3. He can't control his emotions. A wise man feels everything, but he is ruled by nothing. A foolish man feels something and lets it control his entire life. The stupid man is easy to spot in moments of stress. He's the one who explodes over small things. He's the one who lashes out when he feels disrespected. He's the one who lets anger, fear, jealousy, or pride make his decisions for him. He doesn't pause. He doesn't reflect. He doesn't step back and ask, is this the right move? He just reacts. And once the damage is done, he either blames others or pretends it never happened. The Stoics believed that emotions themselves are not the problem. The real danger is when you let emotions take the wheel while your reason sits in the back seat, silent and ignored. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this every day. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But the foolish man flips this around. He tries to control people. He tries to control outcomes. But the one thing he never learns to control is himself. You'll see this in men who let a single insult ruin their whole day. You'll see it in men who burn bridges in a moment of anger, only to regret it later. You'll see it in men who can't handle hearing no without throwing a tantrum, shutting down, or seeking revenge. And the tragic part? Many of these men believe that being emotional makes them real or authentic. They wear their emotional outbursts like a badge of honor. But in reality, they're not being authentic, they're being undisciplined. Stoic philosophy teaches that true freedom is emotional self-mastery. It doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you don't let feelings dictate your actions. You feel the anger, but you don't lash out. You feel the fear, but you don't run. You feel the jealousy, but you rise above it. You stay steady, you stay centered. You stay in control. A foolish man is a slave to whatever emotion is loudest in the moment. But a wise man becomes a master by stepping back, breathing deeply, and choosing reason over reaction. So ask yourself, do you act on impulse, or do you pause and reflect? Do you let emotions make your decisions, or do you use them as information, not commands? Because every time you let your emotions control you, you give your power away. But every time you control your emotions, you reclaim that power, and you move through life with clarity, strength, and peace. Sign 4. He surrounds himself with fools. One of the clearest signs of a foolish man is revealed by the people he chooses to keep around him. You don't even need to hear him speak. Just look at his circle. Look at who he spends his time with. Look at who he calls his friends. Because you can tell a man's future by the company he keeps. A stupid man never surrounds himself with people who challenge him to think deeper, live better, or rise higher. Instead, he builds his life around people who make him feel comfortable, people who make him feel safe in his smallness, people who never question his choices, never challenge his thinking, and never call him to anything greater. These people laugh at his bad habits. They encourage his distractions. They fuel his worst impulses. They make him feel good in the moment, but they quietly pull him further and further away from the man he could become. You'll see it all the time. The man who complains about being broke, yet spends every weekend drinking with the same reckless friends who waste their lives on cheap entertainment. The man who says he wants to build something meaningful, but spends his nights gossiping with people who have no ambition, no discipline, and no direction. The man who claims he's ready to grow, but keeps running back to the same crowd that tells him, "Relax, you're fine just the way you are." And here's where it gets dangerous. Over time, these relationships start to feel normal. You stop noticing how they drain you. You stop noticing how they distract you. You stop noticing how they shape your thoughts, your words, your habits, until you wake up one day wondering why your life feels stuck. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But what he didn't have to explain, because every wise man knows this, is that those thoughts are shaped by the people you let closest to you. If you spend your time with people who make excuses, you will become a man of excuses. If you spend your time with people who fear responsibility, you will start avoiding responsibility yourself. If you spend your time with people who mock self-discipline, you will slowly begin to abandon your own. You will never rise above the people you allow, to influence you, and whether you like it or not, you are becoming more like them every day. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, wrote these words over 2,000 years ago. Associate with those who will make you better. He wasn't talking about finding perfect people. He was warning us to choose people who live by higher standards. People who don't just make you feel good in the moment, but who make you better over the long haul. Because the fool believes friends are for entertainment. He surrounds himself with people who let him stay small, stay weak, and stay distracted. But the wise man knows. Friends are for growth. Friends are for sharpening. Friends are for accountability. So here's your reflection. Who do you let into your life? Do they pull you toward your highest self, or do they pull you back toward comfort and mediocrity? Do they fuel your purpose or distract you from it? Do they challenge you to think, to grow, to rise? Or do they encourage you to stay right where you are? Because here's the hard truth. You don't just have friends. You become like them. Every conversation shapes your mind. Every interaction shapes your character. And over time, their way of living becomes yours. So if you want to build a stronger future, you must start by building a stronger circle. Seek people who live with integrity, people who value discipline over comfort, people who live by principle, not by impulse, because when you surround yourself with the wise, you rise with them. And when you surround yourself with fools, you fall with them. Sign 5. He chases pleasure instead of discipline. One of the most seductive traps a man can fall into is the endless pursuit of pleasure, and a foolish man chases it like it's the only thing that matters. He lives for the weekend. He lives for the next thrill. He lives for that temporary high that makes him feel good for a moment, but leaves him empty the moment it's gone. You'll hear it in the way he talks. He says things like, "I deserve to enjoy my life," or "Life's too short not to have fun," or "You only live once." On the surface, these phrases sound harmless. They even sound a little wise. But if you listen closely, you'll hear something much darker underneath. What he's really saying is, "I don't want to face discomfort. I don't want to do what's hard. I don't want to delay gratification for something bigger." He doesn't say it out loud, but his actions reveal it. He avoids anything that requires discipline. He runs from anything that feels like work, and he convinces himself that comfort is the reward, when in reality, it's the trap. The Stoics knew this trap well. Epictetus, a former slave who rose to become one of the most respected teachers in history, once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself. But the man who chases pleasure is not a master. He's a slave, a prisoner, chained to his cravings, addicted to his urges, and terrified of discomfort." You'll see this kind of man everywhere. He spends hours scrolling on his phone but says he has no time to read or learn. He wastes money on things he doesn't need, but complains that he's always broke. He seeks comfort in food, alcohol, cheap entertainment, meaningless relationships, anything that gives him a hit of pleasure without asking him to grow. And here's the tragedy. The more he chases pleasure, the weaker he becomes. His attention span shrinks. His ambition dies. His ability to endure hardship fades away. And before he knows it, he's built a life that feels good on the surface, but is hollow underneath. Seneca warned us that pleasure is the bait of sin, meaning the things that feel good right now often cost us everything later. Real fulfillment doesn't come from chasing comfort. It comes from building something meaningful, something that takes work, sacrifice, and discipline. So here's your reflection. Are you living for short-term pleasure or long-term purpose? Are you choosing what feels easy now or what builds strength for the future? Are you feeding your body and your mind with things that make you stronger? Or are you numbing yourself with distractions that slowly eat away at your potential? Because every time you choose pleasure over discipline, you trade your future for a fleeting moment of comfort. But every time you choose discipline over pleasure, you build something that lasts, something that makes you proud, something that no one can take from you. And that, the Stoics remind us, is where true freedom begins. Sign 6. He never learns from his mistakes. One of the most tragic signs of a foolish man is this: he never learns from his mistakes. Life keeps trying to teach him lessons, but he refuses to listen. The same problems show up again and again, yet he acts surprised every time. He falls into the same bad relationships. He repeats the same financial mistakes. He reacts the same way to criticism, to pressure, to failure. And instead of stopping to reflect, instead of asking himself what needs to change, he points the finger. Or worse, he shrugs it off and moves on like nothing happened. The Stoics taught that every obstacle is a lesson. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, life will keep bringing the same challenges back to you until you finally learn what they are trying to teach you. But the foolish man resents these challenges. He calls them bad luck. He calls them unfair. He tells himself that life is out to get him, and by doing so, he stays stuck in a cycle of failure and frustration that never ends. You'll see this in men who blame all their exes, but never ask themselves why they keep choosing the same kind of partner. You'll see it in men who keep switching jobs, blaming every boss in every company, but never asking what they themselves need to do differently. You'll see it in men who repeat the same bad habits year after year, but refuse to stop and ask, what can I learn from this? The difference between a wise man and a foolish man is simple. A wise man reflects. A foolish man repeats. The wise man pauses after every mistake and asks, what did this reveal about me? What can I do better next time? What lesson is life trying to teach me right now? But the foolish man avoids these questions because they're uncomfortable, because they force him to face the truth, because they make him take responsibility when he'd rather play the victim. The Stoics believed that failure is not the end, it is feedback. Every mistake carries wisdom. Every setback is a mirror showing you where you need to grow, but only if you are brave enough to look into it. So here's your reflection. Are you repeating the same mistakes in your life? Do you find yourself facing the same problems over and over again? Do you take time to reflect on what life is trying to teach you? Or do you keep moving forward without learning anything new? Because the man who never learns from his mistakes is doomed to live the same year over and over, calling it experience. But the man who pauses, reflects, and adjusts, that man grows wiser with every failure. And that man is the one who eventually wins, not because life got easier, but because he got stronger. So there you have it. 6 signs of a foolish man. 6 traps that ruin potential while making you think you're doing just fine. But here's the good news. None of these signs are permanent. You can change. You can choose to grow. You can stop pretending you know it all. You can take ownership of your life. You can master your emotions instead of being ruled by them. You can walk away from people who keep you small. You can trade pleasure for discipline. And you can finally learn from your mistakes instead of repeating them. The Stoics taught that wisdom isn't a gift, it's a choice. You build it by how you think, how you act, and how you live every single day. So the question is, will you keep walking the easy road to nowhere? Or will you choose the harder path, the one that builds strength, peace, and real power? If this helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to grow even more, hit subscribe for more Stoic wisdom every week. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, stay humble, and keep walking the path.